While preparing dinner for my husband's entire family, I stepped into the garage for more chairs and heard his sister say, "I still can't believe you married this loser." "Dad's right, you need to divorce her before you have kids and get stuck forever," he replied, already working on it. "My lawyer says we can take half her business too." I returned with the chairs and continued hosting with a perfect smile. 3 days later, my WhatsApp was flooded with 47 desperate messages begging me. "Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story." The smell of hickory smoke and slow-cooked brisket had been clinging to my hair since 5 in the morning. My hands, usually rough from handling drywall and sanding blocks, were currently stained with marinade and charcoal dust. I wiped a bead of sweat from my forehead with the back of my wrist, careful not to streak soot across my face. It was the annual spring barbecue, an event my husband, Jason, insisted we host every year to show off our home to his family. And when I say we host, I mean I do the work, and Jason holds a beer while accepting compliments on the landscaping I designed and the deck I built with my own 2 hands. I looked around the backyard. It was picture perfect, exactly the kind of staging I did for my high-end clients at Sarah's Sanctuaries. The hydrangeas were in full bloom, the string lights were twinkling in the early evening twilight, and the table was set with the good linens, the ones I had to hand wash. Jason's family had arrived an hour ago. His mother, Linda, was currently sitting on the patio furniture I had refurbished, critiquing the placement of the outdoor rug. His father, Robert, was lecturing Jason on the stock market, despite Jason being the one who supposedly worked in finance. And then there was Brenda, Jason's older sister, who was already on her 3rd glass of white wine, looking at my garden with a mixture of envy and disdain. "Sarah," Linda called out, not bothering to turn her head toward the grill where I was sweating. "This brisket is taking an awfully long time. You know Robert gets acid reflux if he eats too late." "It's resting, Linda," I called back, forcing a cheerfulness I didn't feel. "Meat needs to rest so it doesn't dry out." 10 more minutes. Jason walked over, not to help, but to grab another microbrew from the cooler next to me. He looked handsome in his polo shirt and boat shoes, the very image of suburban success. He didn't look like a man whose credit card debt I had paid off 3 times. He patted my shoulder condescendingly. "Don't keep them waiting, babe," he said, flashing that boyish grin that used to make my knees weak. Now, it just made me tired. "Oh, and we need more chairs. Brenda brought her new boyfriend, and we're short 2 seats at the main table." "I'm watching the meat, Jason. Can you grab them from the garage?" I asked, flipping a set of vegetable skewers. He sighed, a heavy, dramatic exhale as if I had asked him to rebuild the pyramids. "I'm in the middle of a conversation with Dad about his portfolio. You know where they are stacked." He walked away before I could argue. That was our dynamic. I worked, he networked. I built, he consumed. I took a deep breath, inhaling the hickory smoke, and told myself it was fine. It was just family. I turned the burners to low and headed toward the side door of the garage. Our garage wasn't just a place for cars, it was my workshop. It was where I stored my tools, my lumber, my sanity. I approached the side door, intending to grab the folding chairs quickly and get back to serving. But as I reached for the handle, I heard voices coming from the other side. They were hushed, but the acoustics in the garage amplified everything if you stood in the right spot. It was Jason and Brenda. I paused. My first instinct was that they were sneaking a cigarette, a habit Brenda swore she had quit years ago. I was about to barge in and tease them, but then I heard my name. "I still can't believe you married this loser," Brenda's voice sneered. It was a tone I knew well, usually reserved for customer service workers she felt were beneath her. "Look at her out there, smelling like a smokehouse." "It's embarrassing, Jason. Dad's right, you need to divorce her before you have kids and get stuck forever." My hand froze on the doorknob. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought they might hear it through the door. Loser? I was the one paying the mortgage. I was the one who funded Brenda's emergency bail money last Thanksgiving. I waited for Jason to defend me. I waited for him to say, "Don't talk about my wife like that," or "Sarah is the hardest worker I know." Instead, I heard a chuckle. A cold, dismissive sound. "Relax, Bren," Jason replied. "I'm already working on it. I've been talking to a lawyer for weeks." The ground beneath my work boots felt like it had turned to liquid. "Well, hurry up," Brenda hissed. "She's so blue-collar. It's dragging you down." "I have to time it right," Jason said, his voice dropping lower, conspiratorial and smug. "My lawyer says if I wait until she signs that hotel renovation contract next month, the valuation of her company doubles. In Illinois, that's marital property. We can take half her business, too. I just need to play the doting husband for a few more weeks." "Smart," Brenda laughed. "Take half the business. God, that would be poetic. Then you can finally invest in something real." "Exactly," Jason said. "Plus, I've got plans. Big plans. And they don't include a wife who comes home with sawdust in her hair." I stood there, paralyzed. My entire world, 7 years of marriage, the late nights building my company, the sacrifices, the love, it all shattered in 30 seconds of overheard dialogue. They weren't just talking about leaving me. They were talking about destroying me. They wanted to strip mine my life like a raw resource. I backed away from the door slowly, my hands trembling violently. I walked to the far side of the house, near the air conditioning unit, and sank to the ground. I needed to scream. I needed to grab a sledgehammer and put it through the wall. But then, a strange, cold clarity washed over me. If I screamed now, I lost. If I confronted them now, Jason would know I knew. He would accelerate his timeline. He would hide assets. He would destroy the business I had built from nothing. No. I couldn't let them win. I stood up, brushed the dirt off my jeans, and walked to the shed to get the backup chairs instead. I took 3 deep breaths, visualizing the steel beams I used in construction. I needed to be steel. I walked back toward the party, carrying the chairs, plastering the most perfect, radiant, fake smile onto my face. Before we continue, I want to say thank you for listening. If you are watching this from your living room, or maybe while you're working hard like I was, let me know in the comments what city you're tuning in from. I'd love to see where my fellow fighters are. Walking back into that backyard was the hardest thing I have ever done. It felt like walking onto a stage where everyone knew the script except me, or at least, everyone viewed me as the tragedy waiting to happen. I carried the 2 folding chairs, my knuckles white from gripping the metal so hard. "There she is," Jason called out as I approached the table. He was sitting next to Brenda now, looking relaxed, a beer in one hand. He stood up to help me with the chairs, performing his role of the attentive husband for his parents. I was about to send a search party. "Everything okay, babe?" He reached out to touch my arm. His skin felt hot against mine, like a brand. Every instinct in my body screamed to recoil, to slap his hand away, to flip the table over and scream the truth into his smug face. But I didn't. I let him take the chairs. "Just had to dig them out from behind the winter tires," I said, my voice sounding surprisingly steady. "Sorry for the wait." "Well, finally," Linda huffed, adjusting her silk scarf. "I hope the meat isn't dry now." "It'll be perfect, Linda," I said, smiling until my cheeks hurt. I went to the smoker, pulled out the brisket, and began to carve. As the knife sliced through the tender meat, I thought about the last 7 years. I thought about the day I met Jason. He was charming, ambitious, or so I thought. He had big dreams but no capital. I was the girl from the foster system who had nothing but grit and a set of tools. I fell for him because he offered me something I never had, a family. A place to belong. I remembered the nights I stayed up until 3 a.m., finishing renovation estimates so I could pay for his MBA tuition. I remembered selling my first work truck, the one I bought with my very first big paycheck, to cover his investment losses 3 years ago. He had cried in my arms, promising he would make it up to me, that we were a team. A team. "This is delicious, Sarah," Robert mumbled with a mouthful of food, the highest compliment he was capable of giving. "Though you really should hire a caterer next time. It looks a bit chaotic back there." "I enjoy cooking, Robert," I said, pouring wine for Brenda. Brenda looked up at me, her eyes glittering with malice. "So, Sarah, Jason tells me business is booming. Something about a big hotel contract?" She was fishing. She wanted to confirm the timeline. She wanted to know exactly when the slaughter could begin. I paused, the wine bottle hovering over her glass. "Ideally," I said, keeping my tone casual. "But you know how construction is. Permits, delays. Nothing is signed yet." I saw a flicker of disappointment in Jason's eyes across the table. "Good." "Oh, really?" Jason asked, trying to sound supportive. "I thought you said it was a done deal for next month." "Client is getting cold feet about the budget," I lied smoothly. "Might push it to next quarter." "That's a shame," Brenda said, taking a sip of wine. "Jason has been so proud of you. He was just telling me how much potential your little company has." Little company. Sarah's sanctuaries grossed $500,000 last year. Jason's salary barely covered his car lease and his golf club membership. "Well, we do what we can," I replied. For the next 2 hours, I was the perfect hostess. I cleared plates, I served dessert, I laughed at Robert's stale jokes about the economy. I watched Jason play the loving husband. He put his hand on my lower back when he walked past. He winked at me. It was terrifying how good he was at it. If I hadn't been in the garage, I would have believed him. I would have believed that he loved me. I would have gone to bed thinking I was the luckiest woman in the world, while he lay next to me calculating how to steal the life I built. "You're such a good wife," Jason whispered in my ear as we were saying goodbye to his parents at the door. "My mom was really impressed today." I felt bile rise in my throat. "I do it for you, Jason," I said. And in a twisted way, it was true. I was doing this for him now. I was giving him the rope to hang himself. As the taillights of his parents' car faded down the street, Jason stretched and yawned. "Man, I'm beat. Entertaining is exhausting. I'm going to head up." "You got the cleanup?" He didn't even wait for an answer. He just assumed I would spend the next 2 hours scrubbing dishes while he slept. "I got it," I said to his retreating back. "Love you, babe," he called out from the stairs. "Aha," I murmured. Once I heard the shower running upstairs, the smile dropped from my face. I didn't clean a single dish. I turned off the patio lights, leaving the mess exactly where it was. I walked into the living room, sat in the dark, and stared at the ceiling fan spinning above me. The shock was wearing off, replaced by a cold, hard rage. They called me a loser. They called me blue-collar trash. They wanted my business. They wanted my future. I looked at my hands in the dim light. These hands built this house. These hands built my company. And these hands were going to tear Jason's world apart, brick by brick. I wasn't going to sleep. Not yet. Tonight was the night I stopped being a wife and started being an investigator. The house was silent, save for the rhythmic humming of the refrigerator and the occasional settle of the floorboards. I waited a full hour after the bedroom light went out before I moved. I crept up the stairs, skipping the third step that always squeaked. I had fixed stairs for a living, I knew how to navigate a structure without waking the ghosts inside it. I cracked the bedroom door open. Jason was sprawled out on the king-sized bed I had paid for, mouth open, snoring softly. He looked so peaceful. It was infuriating. How could someone sleep so soundly knowing they were planning to gut the person lying next to them? His phone was plugged into the charger on the nightstand on his side. Usually, I respected his privacy. I never snooped. I believed trust was the foundation of a marriage, ironic, considering I worked in foundations and I had missed the cracks in my own. I moved like a shadow around the bed. My heart was racing again, a frantic thumping in my ears. If he woke up, what would I say? That I was checking the time? I gently unplugged the phone. The screen lit up. 11:42 p.m. Passcode. I paused. Jason was a creature of habit, but he was also arrogant. I tried his birthday. Nothing. I tried our anniversary. Incorrect. I frowned. Then, I remembered something Brenda had said earlier about him being God's gift. I tried 0000. No. Think, Sarah. Who does Jason love most? Himself. I tried the date he graduated from his MBA program, the degree I paid for. 0518. Click. The phone unlocked. My stomach dropped. The fact that he valued that day over our wedding day told me everything I needed to know. But I didn't have time to be hurt. I went straight to WhatsApp. There was a thread at the top, pinned. The contact name was just T. I opened it, and the breath left my lungs. Jason, 10:15 p.m. finally done with the family circus. She suspects nothing. The brisket was dry, by the way. Can't wait for your cooking. T, 10:17 p.m. Poor baby. Did you get the timeline from the lawyer? Jason, 10:20 p.m. Yeah. We have to wait for the hotel contract. Once she signs that, the business evaluation spikes. Then we file. I'll take half, plus alimony since she's the primary earner and I've been supporting her career by managing the household finances. LOL. T, 10:22 p.m. You're bad. I love it. Just make sure you get the lake house too. I want summer weekends there. Jason, 10:23 p.m. Done. It's in both our names, but I'll force a sale. I love you, Tiff. Hang in there. 2 more weeks. I had to put the phone down on the nightstand for a second because my hands were shaking so badly I thought I might drop it. Tiffany. T was Tiffany. She was a junior associate at the bank Jason worked at. I had met her at the Christmas party. She was young, 24 maybe, with expensive taste and a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. She had smiled at me, complimented my dress, and all the while she was sleeping with my husband. He was mocking me. Mocking my cooking. Mocking my work. And the part about alimony? He was planning to claim spousal support? After I supported him for 7 years? The audacity was breathtaking. I picked the phone back up. I didn't just read, I worked. I took screenshots of everything. The texts, the photos, God, the photos, the dates. I sent them all to a secret email account I used for high-security client contracts. Then I checked his email. There was a folder labeled Project Freedom. Inside were emails with a divorce attorney named Mike. From Attorney Mike subject, Asset Division Strategy Body, Jason, regarding the business Sarah's Sanctuaries, since Illinois is an equitable distribution state but commingling of funds has occurred, we have a strong case to argue that your contributions to the household allowed her to build the business. We can aim for 50%. Also, stop spending from the joint account for the personal items. It leaves a trail. I felt cold all over. Commingling of funds. That meant because I had been generous, because I had put my business money into our joint life to pay bills, he could claim it was all one big pot. I forwarded the emails to myself. I deleted the sent history. I closed the apps. I plugged the phone back in. I stood over him for a long moment, watching him sleep. I had the urge to wake him up. To scream. To throw the phone at his head. But the text about the hotel contract flashed in my mind. 2 more weeks. He was waiting for me to make more money so he could steal it. If I confronted him now, he would panic. He would destroy evidence. He would hide money. No. I needed to be smarter. He thought I was just a blue-collar loser. He thought I was simple. He forgot that to build a house that lasts, you have to understand structure, pressure points, and how to bring a wall down exactly where you want it. I crept out of the bedroom and went downstairs to the guest room. I didn't sleep that night. I laid there, staring at the darkness, formulating a demolition plan. The next morning, Monday, I did something I hadn't done in 5 years. I called in sick. I told Jason I had a migraine from the stress of the party. He didn't even look up from his toast. Take some Tylenol, babe. I need you back on your feet. That hotel contract isn't going to sign itself, he said, checking his watch. He kissed my forehead, a Judas kiss, and left for work. The second his car pulled out of the driveway, I was in motion. I wasn't sick. I was on a warpath. I drove 40 minutes to the next town over to meet with a divorce attorney I had found online. Her name was Rebecca, and she had a reputation for being a shark in a silk suit. I sat in her office, clutching a folder with the printed screenshots and emails I had gathered the night before. I told her everything. The garage conversation. The texts. The plan to wait for the contract. Rebecca listened, her face unreadable. When I finished, she took off her glasses and looked at me with a mixture of sympathy and hardness. "Sarah, I'm going to be straight with you," she said. "In Illinois, you're in a vulnerable position. Because you don't have a prenuptial agreement, and because, as Jason's lawyer correctly noted, you've likely commingled funds, he can make a play for half the business. He can argue that by handling the domestic sphere or finances, he enabled your career. But he didn't." I protested, my voice rising. "He plays golf. I do the cooking, the cleaning, and I run the company. I paid off his student loans. I paid his credit card debt. Can you prove that?" Rebecca asked calmly. "Can you prove the debts were his personal spending and not household expenses? Because if he used that credit card to buy groceries once or twice, he can muddy the waters." I slumped back in my chair. "He's a financial advisor. He knows how to hide things." "Exactly," Rebecca said. "If we file for divorce today, he will freeze the assets. He will drag this out. He will force a forensic accounting of your business which will cost you tens of thousands of dollars and stop you from working. And he might get temporary spousal support while the case is pending because you are the higher earner." I felt like I had been slapped. The law, which was supposed to protect justice, seemed designed to protect the parasite. "So what do I do?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Do I just let him rob me?" Rebecca leaned forward. "No. We fight. But we fight smart. You said he's waiting for the hotel contract?" "Yes. Next month." "Good. That gives us time," Rebecca said, a dangerous glint in her eye. "Don't sign that contract yet. Or better yet, delay it legally. Meanwhile, we need to separate your finances quietly. We need to find where he's hiding money. And most importantly, we need leverage. Adultery in Illinois doesn't heavily impact asset division unless he dissipated marital assets on the affair." "Dissipated?" "Spent money on her," Rebecca explained. "Dinners, hotels, gifts. If he used your money to romance her, we can claw that back. We can call it dissipation of the marital estate. That is your weapon." I thought about the business trips he took. The client dinners on Friday nights. He handles the books for the house, I said, realizing my mistake. I just put my paycheck in the joint account. Rebecca sighed. Step 1, get those records. Step 2, don't let him know you know. Be the migraine-suffering, loving wife. Can you do that? I can try, I said. Sarah, you build houses, Rebecca said firmly. You know that if the foundation is rotten, you don't just paint over it. You have to dig it out. This is going to be messy. But if you blow your cover too early, you lose the business. I drove home in a daze. The reality of my situation was sinking in. I wasn't just losing a husband, I was fighting for my life's work. I pulled into the driveway and looked at my house. My beautiful house. He wanted to take this, too. Or force me to sell it to pay him off. I walked inside, and the smell of Jason's cologne lingered in the hallway. It used to smell like home. Now it smelled like a crime scene. I went straight to my home office. I needed to see the bank statements. I logged into our joint account. Access denied. I typed the password again. Access denied. He had changed the password to the bank account. This morning. My phone buzzed. A text from Jason. Jason, hey babe, noticed some suspicious activity on the bank account, so I reset the password to be safe. I'll give it to you later when I get home. Don't worry about bills, I handled them. He was locking me out. The walls were closing in. Panic is a cold sensation. It starts in the stomach and spreads to the fingertips, making them numb. Jason locking me out of the joint account was a declaration of war, disguised as a security measure. He knew I wouldn't push back too hard because I trusted him with the finances. I couldn't ask him for the password immediately without raising suspicion. I had to go around him. I called Frank, my business accountant. Frank was an old-school guy, messy desk, coffee stains on his tie, but he was brilliant and loyal. He had been with me since I was working out of a van. Frank, I need to see me. Now, I said into the phone. Sarah? I'm in the middle of tax season prep, can it wait? No. It's about Jason. And the business. Frank went silent. Come to the back door. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Frank's cluttered office. I explained everything, the divorce plans, the affair, the locked personal accounts. Frank looked like he had swallowed a lemon. Sarah, I warned you about putting him on the authorized user list for the business credit card. I know, I whispered. I thought, for emergencies. Let's look, Frank said, typing furiously on his ancient keyboard. We pulled up the statements for the Sarah Sanctuary's corporate card. Usually, I just glanced at the totals and paid them. Jason told me he used it for networking dinners to get me clients. Okay, Frank muttered, adjusting his glasses. Here we go. Last month. Steakhouse 41 foot. $300. Was that a client? I don't think so, I said. I didn't get any leads from a steakhouse. What about this? Frank pointed to a line item. Lux Spa and Resort. $500. Gift card. I thought maybe he bought that for his mom's birthday, I stammered, though I knew Linda hated spas. Sarah, Frank said gently. Look at the date. It was a Tuesday. 2 weeks ago. A Tuesday when I was on a roof in 90-degree heat, fixing a leak for a frantic client. Jason had told me he was at a seminar. We kept digging. It got worse. Tiffany and Company, the jewelry store, not the mistress, though the irony was sickening. Nordstrom. Victoria's Secret. Thousands of dollars. All charged to my business account. All categorized by Jason in the software as client relations or office supplies. He's stealing from the company, Frank said, his voice flat. This isn't just marital dissipation. This is embezzlement. He's using company funds for personal gain without authorization. Can we prove it wasn't for me? I asked. Frank spun the monitor around. Did you get a diamond tennis bracelet last month? I looked at my bare wrist. No. Then he bought it for someone else using your pre-tax revenue. Sarah, this is a felony. Or at least severe tax fraud if we don't correct it. My rage was starting to eclipse my fear. He wasn't just spending our money, he was risking my business's legal standing. He was exposing me to an IRS audit to buy jewelry for a 24-year-old. Print it, I said. Print it all. I'll do more than that, Frank said, cracking his knuckles. I'm going to run a full forensic audit of the last 3 years. If he bought a stick of gum with your money, I'll find it. I left Frank's office with a stack of paper thick enough to choke a horse. I hid it under the spare tire in my truck. I couldn't bring it into the house. When I got home, Jason was already there. He was sitting on the couch, watching a game, eating chips. Hey, hon, he said, not looking away from the TV. Headache better? A little, I lied. Hey, I tried to buy groceries but the card declined. Can I get that new password? He hesitated. Just for a split second. Oh, yeah. It's Sarah Best Wife 123. The password made me want to scream. Sarah Best Wife. He was mocking me even in the security settings. Thanks, I said. Did you sign that contract yet? He asked, casually. Too casually. Not yet, I called out from the kitchen, gripping the counter edge until my knuckles turned white. The lawyers are still reviewing the liability clause. Might take another week. Tell them to hurry up, Jason said, his voice tightening. We don't want to lose the momentum. I'm on it, I said. I went upstairs and locked myself in the bathroom. I turned on the shower so he wouldn't hear me crying. But they weren't tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of pure, unadulterated fury. He stole from me. He lied to me. He used my hard-earned money to drape diamonds on another woman while I came home covered in drywall dust. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red, but my jaw was set. You picked the wrong contractor, Jason, I whispered to my reflection. I don't just build. I know how to demolish. But I didn't know the worst of it yet. The jewelry was just the tip of the iceberg. The real blow was waiting for me at the bank the next morning. Tuesday morning. The sun was shining, birds were singing, and I was driving to our local bank branch with a stomach full of lead. Frank's audit had revealed the credit card theft, but I remembered something odd Jason had said a few months ago about leveraging our assets. At the time, I thought he meant stocks. Now, I wasn't so sure. I walked into the bank. I knew the manager, Nancy. We had done business for years. Hi, Sarah. Nancy beamed. Here to check on the HELIC application? I froze. The what? Nancy's smile faltered. The home equity line of credit. The $200,000 line against your house. Jason dropped off the final paperwork last week. We're just waiting on the final underwriting approval. The world tilted on its axis. My house. The house I bought before we were married, the one I put Jason's name on later because I thought we were partners. He was taking a $200,000 loan against our equity? Nancy, I said, my voice dangerously calm. I didn't apply for a HELIC. Nancy looked confused. She pulled a file from her desk. But I have the paperwork right here. Signed by both of you. See? She slid the paper across the mahogany desk. I looked down. There, at the bottom of the page, was Jason's signature. Big, loopy, confident. And next to it was Sarah Jenkins. But it wasn't my signature. It was a good forgery, I'll give him that. He must have traced it from an old check. But the S was too curled. The J was too sharp. That's not my signature, I whispered. Nancy's face went pale. Sarah, are you sure? Jason said you were too busy with the hotel contract to come in, so he brought the signed papers. I never saw this, I said, looking up at her. He forged my signature. He's trying to take $200,000 out of my house. Nancy immediately pulled the file back. Okay. This is serious. I need to freeze this immediately. We have to file a fraud report. Wait, I said, putting a hand on hers. If we filed a formal fraud report right now, the bank would call Jason. He would know I knew. He would panic. He might flee or destroy the other evidence I needed for the divorce. Can you just pause it? I asked. Tell him there's a delay in underwriting? A missing document? Just buy me a week. Sarah, this is bank fraud. It's a federal crime, Nancy whispered. If I knowingly... Nancy, please, I begged. He's planning to leave me. He's trying to drain the equity before he files for divorce. I need a few days to get my legal ducks in a row. If you trigger the alarm now, he cleans out the rest of the accounts. Nancy looked at me, then at the computer screen. She typed something. I'll flag it for additional review required regarding property valuation, she said tight-lipped. That will hold it up for at least 10 days. But Sarah, you need to get a lawyer. Now. I have one, I said, standing up. Can I have a copy of that application? The one with the forgery? I shouldn't, Nancy said. Then she slid a photocopy across the desk. But you didn't get it from me. I walked out of the bank clutching the evidence of a felony. He wasn't just greedy. He was criminal. He was willing to put me $200,000 in debt to fund his new life with Tiffany. He was going to leave me with the mortgage and the loan while he walked away with the cash. I sat in my truck and stared at the document. A strange feeling settled over me. It wasn't fear anymore. It was power. Jason had crossed a line that he couldn't uncross. In Illinois, adultery is one thing. But fraud? Forgery? That changes the game. I drove to a spy shop on the outskirts of the city. I didn't care about the cost. I bought 3 tiny cameras and a voice-activated recorder. If he wanted to play criminal, I would play detective. I drove home, my mind racing. I had to go back into that house. I had to eat dinner with him. I had to sleep next to him. And I had to do it knowing he had just tried to sell my future for a quick cash grab. When I got home, Jason was in the kitchen, making a smoothie. Hey, he chirped. Did you talk to the lawyers about the contract? Yeah, I said, setting my keys down. They said we're almost there. Just a few more days. Great, he said, taking a sip. Oh, by the way, the bank called. Some delay with the, joint account verification. Stupid bureaucracy. So annoying, I agreed, opening the fridge to hide my face. Banks are the worst. Totally, he said. I grabbed a bottle of water, fighting the urge to smash it over his head. I'm going to take a nap, I said. Okay. I'll be in the office, he replied. I walked upstairs. I had work to do. I had cameras to hide. And I had a trap to set. The next 3 days were a blur of Oscar-worthy performances. If there was an Academy Award for wife pretending not to know her husband is a felonious adulterer, I would have swept the category. I waited until Jason went to his gym session, which I now knew was a rendezvous with Tiffany at a motel off the interstate, to install the cameras. I put one in the living room, hidden in a decorative plant. One in the kitchen, atop the cabinets. And one in his home office, pointed directly at his desk. The recorder went under the passenger seat of his car. Living with him was like living with a ticking bomb. Every word he said felt like a lie. "You look nice today, Sarah," he said on Wednesday morning. Lie. "I'm going to be late tonight, late meeting with a client," he said Wednesday afternoon. Lie. "I love you," he said Wednesday night. The biggest lie of all. I watched him on the camera feed from my phone while I was at work. I saw him pacing the living room, talking on the phone. "Jason, on video I don't know why the helic is stuck. Nancy is being a pain. Yeah, I know we need the cash for the deposit on the condo. Baby, just be patient. Once she signs the hotel contract, we are golden. I'll clear out the joint savings the day I file." I recorded that clip. Saved it. Backed it up to the cloud. But the hardest part wasn't the spying. It was the intimacy. On Thursday night, Jason tried to initiate sex. We were in bed. He rolled over, running his hand down my arm. "You've been so tense lately, Sarah. Let me help you relax." My skin crawled. The thought of his hands on me, hands that had been on Tiffany just hours before, hands that had forged my signature to steal my home, it was physically repulsing. I pulled away sharply. "I can't, Jason. My stomach. I think I ate something bad." He sighed, annoyed. "You're always sick lately. You need to see a doctor." "Maybe I will," I said, turning my back to him. I lay there in the dark, tears leaking onto my pillow. I missed the man I thought he was. I mourned the marriage I thought I had. But mostly, I was angry at myself for letting it get this far. For being so blind. For working so hard to build a castle for a man who was selling the bricks behind my back. Friday morning, I was in my warehouse, organizing inventory, when my phone buzzed. It wasn't Jason. It was Kyle. Jason's younger brother. Kyle was the black sheep of the family because he was a public school teacher and refused to care about status. He was kind, quiet, and we had always gotten along, though we weren't close. "Kyle, Sarah. Can we meet? Coffee? It's important. Don't tell Jason." My heart skipped a beat. Did he know? Was he part of it? Was he going to warn Jason that I was acting weird? I texted back, "Meet me at Joe's Diner in 20. I arrived first. I sat in a booth in the back, watching the door. Kyle walked in looking nervous. He was wearing a worn cardigan and carrying a satchel. He looked nothing like Jason. He sat down across from me, refusing a menu. "Sarah," he started, his voice shaking. "I don't know how to say this." "Just say it, Kyle," I said, bracing myself. "I know about Tiffany," he blurted out. I exhaled. "Okay." He looked surprised. You know?" "I found out a few days ago," I said. "Did Jason send you here to smooth things over?" "God, no!" Kyle looked horrified. "He doesn't know I'm here." "Sarah, I was at my parents' house last night. They were talking. Jason, Mom, Dad. They're planning something awful. I know about the divorce, Kyle. And the business." Kyle shook his head. "It's worse. Mom suggested that after the divorce, once Jason gets half your company, they should sue you for emotional distress or mismanagement to force you to sell the other half to them cheaply. They want to push you out completely. They want to take Sarah's sanctuaries and rebrand it under Jason's name." I stared at him. It wasn't enough to steal half? They wanted to erase me entirely? Why are you telling me this? I asked. He's your brother. Kyle reached into his bag. Because you're a good person, Sarah. You helped me with my tuition when Dad refused. You fixed my roof for free. You don't deserve this. He slid a piece of paper across the table. I found this in Jason's car when I borrowed it yesterday. I thought you should have it. I looked down. It was a receipt. Diamond Emporium. Item, 2-carat princess cut engagement ring. Price, $8,500. Payment method, Visa ending in 4490. Visa $4,490. That was the emergency credit card for my business. The one I kept for material shortages. He bought her an engagement ring. With my money. While still married to me. He's going to propose, Kyle whispered. He's planning to do it the weekend after he files the papers. I took the receipt. My hand wasn't shaking anymore. It was steady as a rock. Thank you, Kyle, I said. What are you going to do? He asked. I looked at the receipt, then up at him. I'm going to host a dinner party, I said. And I'm going to burn their world down. Kyle looked at me like I had lost my mind. A dinner party? Sarah, you need a lawyer, not a casserole. I have a lawyer, Kyle. But a lawyer can only get me money. I want justice, I said, tucking the receipt into my purse. And for that, I need everyone in one room. Jason, your parents, Brenda. I need them to feel safe. I need them to think they've won. You want me to come? Kyle asked. No, I said initially. Then I paused. Having a witness, a family member who was on my side, would be devastating for them. Actually, yes. Come. But don't say a word until I tell you to. Can you do that? I'm in, Kyle said. I'm tired of them treating people like disposable tools. I left the diner feeling lighter than I had in a week. I had an ally. I went back to my office and called Rebecca, my lawyer. I have something new, I told her. Embezzlement. Bank fraud. And proof of intent to defraud a business partner. Send it all, Rebecca said, her voice sharp. Sarah, with the forged signature on the helic and the engagement ring bought with company funds, we have passed divorce court territory. We can threaten criminal charges. This is leverage with a capital L. I'm not going to sign the hotel contract, I told her. Good. But I'm going to tell him I did. Rebecca paused. Why? Because I need him to think the trap is sprung. I need him to invite his family over to celebrate. I want them to see the fall. Sarah, be careful, Rebecca warned. Provoking a narcissist is dangerous. I'm not provoking him, I said. I'm ending him. I drove home. It was Friday afternoon. The emergency family dinner I had orchestrated was set for tonight. I had texted Jason earlier, big news about the contract. We need to celebrate. Invite your family. He had replied instantly, awesome. Knew you could do it, babe. Mom and Dad are thrilled. They're coming at 7. He thought we were celebrating his payday. I walked into the house. It was quiet. I went to the dining room. I set the table. The good china again. The crystal glasses. But this time, at each place setting, instead of a napkin, I placed a manila folder. Inside Jason's folder, the divorce papers, the foreclosure notice on the helic fraud, and the receipt for the engagement ring. Inside his parents' folder, the transcript of them plotting to sue me. Inside Brenda's folder, the photos of Jason's texts calling her a mooch. I had found those deeper in the scroll. I covered the folders with the placemats. I went to the kitchen and started prepping. But I wasn't making brisket this time. I was ordering pizza. I was done cooking for these people. At 6 p.m., Jason came home. He was buzzing with energy. "Did you sign it?" he asked, practically bouncing. "It's all done," I lied, smiling. "The scanned copy is on the iPad. We can show everyone after dinner." "You're the best, Sarah," he grabbed me and spun me around. "We're going to be rich. I mean, the company is going to be rich." "Yes," I said, letting him hold me. "Rich. I'm going to go change." "Put on the good suit," he said, running upstairs. I watched him go. He was so happy. He thought he had pulled off the perfect heist. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Unknown, this is Mark. Tiffany's husband. I got your message. I'm outside in the car. Just give the signal." I smiled. I had found Mark on Facebook 2 days ago. Tiffany wasn't just a mistress, she was a married mistress. And her husband, a wealthy contractor from the city, had no idea she was sleeping with my broke husband. Until I told him. The stage was set. The players were arriving. The doorbell rang. It was Linda and Robert. "Sarah!" Linda cried, actually hugging me for the first time in years. "Jason says you landed the big whale. We are so proud of you." "It's a game changer," Robert said, pumping my hand. "Finally, some real money in this family." "Come in," I said, ushering them into the spider's web. "Make yourselves at home. It's going to be a night to remember." I looked toward the garage door, remembering the moment my life shattered just a week ago. Tonight, I wasn't the victim in the garage. Tonight, I was the wrecking ball. The living room was filled with the sound of corks popping and forced laughter. Linda, my mother-in-law, was already on her second glass of Chardonnay, sitting on my sofa like a queen holding court. She ran a manicured hand over the fabric, probably calculating how much she could sell the furniture for once they kicked me out. "So, Sarah," Linda purred, her eyes scanning the room. "Jason says this hotel contract is going to double the company's revenue. That must be overwhelming for you. Managing that much money." "It's a lot of responsibility," I said, handing a coaster to Robert, who was about to set his sweating scotch glass directly onto my antique coffee table. "But I have a good team." "Well, it's a good thing you have Jason," Robert chimed in, taking a swig. "You're a hard worker, Sarah, we've always said that." "But finance? Strategy? That's man's work. You need a steady hand to guide the ship." I smiled, a tight, sharp expression that didn't reach my eyes. "Jason certainly has plans for the money." Jason, standing by the fireplace in his best suit, beamed. He looked like a rooster who thought he had summoned the sun. He had no idea that the sun was actually a meteor hurtling toward his head. As they chattered about vacation homes and new cars, spending money I hadn't even earned yet, my mind drifted to the folder hidden under the placemat in the dining room. Specifically, the dossier on Tiffany. While Jason was busy playing the big shot, he had neglected to do the one thing I always did before a project, a background check. 2 days ago, after finding the receipt for the engagement ring, I had dug into Tiffany. Jason described her in his texts as a sophisticated junior associate with family money. He thought he was trading up. He thought he was leaving a dusty contractor for a shiny heiress. The reality was pathetic. Tiffany wasn't a junior associate. She was a temporary administrative assistant on a 6-month contract that was expiring next week. And the family money? Non-existent. I had found her social media, which led me to her wedding registry from 3 years ago. Tiffany was married. Her husband, Mark, was a general contractor, ironically, the same profession Jason looked down on me for. Mark owned a successful paving company in the city. I had reached out to Mark under the guise of a potential client, then dropped the bomb. We met for coffee yesterday. Mark was a big guy, rough hands, kind eyes. When I showed him the texts and the receipt for the ring Jason bought, he didn't scream. He just deflated. She told me she was working late, Mark had said, staring into his black coffee. She told me she needed money for her sick mother. I've given her $10,000 in the last 2 months. She's spending it on hotels with my husband, I had told him gently. And my husband is stealing from me to buy her jewelry. Jason thought he was running away with a wealthy princess. In reality, he was running away with a broke sugar baby who was scamming 2 men simultaneously. Tiffany had $80,000 in credit card debt and a penchant for online gambling. She didn't love Jason. She loved the corporate credit card he had been swiping. I looked at Jason now, laughing at his father's joke. He looked so confident. He thought he was the smartest man in the room. He thought he had played me, the simple builder, like a fiddle. Earth to Sarah, Brenda snapped, waving a hand in front of my face. I snapped back to reality. Sorry. Just thinking about the future. I was saying, Brenda sneered, that pizza is a bit pedestrian for a celebration dinner, isn't it? If Jason had landed a deal this big, we would be at Le Monde. I thought we should keep it humble, I said, meeting her gaze. You know, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Oh, they've hatched, honey, Brenda laughed, clinking her glass against Jason's. They've definitely hatched. I checked my watch. 7:15 p.m. Mark was parked down the street in his truck. Kyle was sitting quietly in the corner, nursing a soda, looking pale. He met my eyes and gave a microscopic nod. Who's hungry? I asked. Let's eat, Jason rubbed his hands together. I've got a big announcement to make after dinner. Oh, Jason, I thought. You have no idea. We moved to the dining room. I had dimmed the lights, casting long shadows against the walls. The smell of pepperoni and garlic from the delivery boxes clashed with the expensive perfume Linda was wearing. It was a grotesque tableau, fine china, crystal goblets, and greasy cardboard boxes. Everyone took their seats. Jason sat at the head of the table, a seat he rarely took, but tonight he felt entitled to it. I sat opposite him. The folders were hidden beneath the placemats, invisible under the dim light and the clutter of pizza boxes. So, Robert started, grabbing a slice of pepperoni with a napkin, looking at it with disdain before taking a bite. Let's talk numbers. Jason says the valuation is going to hit $2 million post-contract? Easily, Jason said, puffing out his chest. Maybe 2.5. Sarah has undervalued her assets for years. Terrible management, really. But once I step in as CFO, officially, we'll restructure. I took a sip of water, my phone resting face down on the table, the voice memo app running. CFO? I asked innocently. We never discussed you taking a formal role, Jason. Well, babe, Jason chuckled, condescendingly. It's time. You're great with the hammers and nails, but we need to protect the family wealth. Dad agrees. Absolutely, Robert grunted. You need to sign over controlling interest to Jason, Sarah. For liability purposes. If a worker gets hurt, they sue you. If Jason holds the assets in a trust, we can protect it. That sounds complicated, I said, baiting the trap. And what about me? What's my role? Brenda laughed, picking a mushroom off her pizza. You keep doing what you do. You work. Jason manages. It's the natural order. Honestly, Sarah, you should be grateful. Most men wouldn't want a wife who comes home smelling like sawdust. Jason is doing you a favor by staying and fixing your mess. My hand tightened around my fork. Doing me a favor. And the money? I asked, looking directly at Jason. What's the plan for the profit from this big hotel job? Jason's eyes glazed over with greed. He didn't see a wife across the table, he saw an ATM. We need to diversify, Jason said smoothly. I was thinking we liquidate the cash reserves, about 300 grand, right, and invest in real estate. I found a great condo downtown. Purely for investment, of course. The condo he planned to live in with Tiffany. And a boat, Linda added helpfully. You promised your father a boat if the business took off, Jason. Right, the boat, Jason agreed. We deserve a reward, don't we? For all the years I supported you while you built this thing. Supported me? I repeated. Jason, I paid your tuition. I paid off your car. The table went silent for a second. Then Jason laughed, a cold, sharp sound. Details, Sarah. I supported you emotionally. I allowed you to focus on your little projects while I handled the bigger picture. That's worth half, don't you think? Maybe more. Legally, it's 50-50, Brenda chimed in, reciting what I assumed was advice she'd heard from Jason's lawyer. But if you were smart, Sarah, you'd give him 60% just to keep him happy. You don't want to lose him, do you? No, I said softly. I certainly don't want to lose what's mine. Exactly, Linda nodded, mistaking my meaning. So it's settled. Monday morning, Jason brings the papers for the restructuring. You sign, he takes control, and we can all stop worrying about you ruining the family legacy. I looked at Kyle. He was staring at his plate, his face red with shame for his family. He looked up at me, his eyes pleading, do it. End this. I had enough. I had the recording. I had them admitting they wanted to strip me of my company, my dignity, and my future. They didn't just want a divorce, they wanted a hostile takeover of my life. I looked at the pizza box in the center of the table. It was empty. Fitting. They had consumed everything I offered and were still hungry for the bones. You know, I said, my voice changing. The submissive, tired wife vanished. In her place sat the CEO, the builder, the woman who could tear down a wall with a sledgehammer. This conversation has been very illuminating. Good, Jason wiped his mouth. I'm glad you finally see sense. Oh, I see everything, Jason, I said. I see so clearly now. I reached for the remote control that controlled the wall-mounted TV behind Jason. I actually prepared a little presentation, I said. Since we're talking about the future of the company. A presentation? Jason raised an eyebrow. Cute. Did you make a slideshow of your paint colors? Something like that, I said. I pressed the power button. The screen flickered to life. The glow of the television screen cast a blue light over the dining room, cutting through the dim ambience I had carefully curated. Jason twisted in his chair to look at the screen, a smirk still playing on his lips. He expected, I assume, a spreadsheet showing projected profits or photos of the hotel site. He expected a tribute to his genius. His parents and Brenda leaned in, their faces masks of bored anticipation. They were wolves, licking their chops after a meal, waiting for the dessert course which they assumed would be my total capitulation. What is this? Brenda asked, swirling her wine. Home movies? In a way, I said, standing up. I walked to the head of the table, standing just behind Jason's chair. I placed my hands on the back of it, leaning in close to his ear. It's a story about investment, I whispered. And return on investment. On the screen, the static cleared. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a video file. The timestamp was from 5 days ago. The angle was high, from the security camera I had installed in the living room. Jason frowned. Sarah, why do you have footage of the living room? Just watch, I said. On the screen, Jason was pacing back and forth, phone to his ear. The audio was crisp and clear. Video: Jason, I don't know why the helic is stuck. Nancy is being a pain. Yeah, I know we need the cash for the deposit on the condo. Baby, just be patient. Once she signs the hotel contract, we are golden. I'll clear out the joint savings the day I file. The silence in the room was instant and absolute. It was the kind of silence that happens after a car crash, before the screaming starts. Jason's face went drain white. He looked at the screen, then at me, his eyes wide with a primal panic. Sarah, he croaked. That's out of context. Is it? I asked pleasantly. I clicked the remote. Next slide. A split screen appeared. On the left, a photo of the Diamond Emporium receipt for the $8,500 engagement ring, charged to my business visa. On the right, a photo from Tiffany's Instagram, a close-up of a hand wearing that exact ring, captioned, soon to be official. #upgrade. Brenda gasped. Linda put a hand over her mouth. Robert turned a shade of purple that looked dangerous. You bought her a ring? Brenda whispered, looking at her brother. You idiot. You bought it with the company card? I was going to pay it back. Jason stammered, standing up so fast his chair tipped over backward with a loud crash. Sarah, turn it off. This is ridiculous. Sit down, I commanded. My voice wasn't loud, but it was made of steel. It was the voice I used to order a crew of 20 men on a job site. I said, sit down, Jason. He froze. He looked at his father for help, but Robert was staring at the screen, where the image had changed again. This time, it was the forged helic application. The signature that wasn't mine. Bank fraud, I said, pointing at the screen. Federal crime. Up to 30 years in prison. You tried to mortgage my house to fund your life with your mistress. Mistress? Linda squeaked. Jason, you said she was a business partner. She is, I said. She's in the business of spending my money. I reached down and flipped over the placemat in front of Jason. I revealed the manila folder. Open it, I said. Jason's hands were shaking so badly he couldn't grasp the corner of the folder. He looked like a cornered rat. I said open it. I slammed my hand on the table, making the silverware jump. He flipped it open. Inside wasn't the contract for the hotel. It was a stapled packet of paper. At the top, in bold, black letters, petition for dissolution of marriage. And underneath that, a copy of the police report I had filed that morning regarding the forged signature. I didn't sign the hotel contract, Jason, I said, my voice dripping with ice. I spent the last 3 days moving every cent of my company's money into a new, secure account. I notified the bank of the fraud. I notified the credit card companies of the theft. I looked around the table at the stunned faces of his family. There is no $2 million, I said. There is no boat, Robert. There is no condo. There is only a massive amount of debt, a pending criminal investigation, and a divorce. You bitch, Jason whispered, his face twisting into something ugly. You set me up. I set you up. I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. You set yourself up the moment you called me a loser in my own garage. You thought I was stupid. You thought because I work with my hands, I couldn't use my brain. You thought you could bleed me dry and I would thank you for it. We can explain, Linda stammered, trying to regain her composure. Sarah, darling, we wanted to make sure the business was secure. Save it, Linda, I snapped. I heard the recording of you suggesting you sue me for emotional distress. It's in your folder. Read it. Linda went pale and shrank back into her chair. The wolf pack wasn't looking so fierce anymore. They looked like what they were, scavengers who had been caught in a spotlight. But I wasn't done. I had one more card to play. The card waiting in the driveway. The air in the room was so thick you could choke on it. The smell of cold pepperoni pizza suddenly seemed nauseating. Jason was standing, gripping the edge of the table, his knuckles white. His eyes darted around the room, looking for an exit, a lie, anything to salvage the situation. "Sarah," he began, his voice taking on that wheedling, manipulative tone I knew so well. "Baby, listen. The video, it was just talk. Locker room talk with the guys. I never meant it. And the ring, it's an investment. Diamonds appreciate in value. An investment worn on another woman's finger?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Do you think I'm brain dead, Jason? She means nothing to me." Jason shouted, desperate now. "It was a mistake. A moment of weakness. I was stressed about the business, about supporting us." "Supporting us?" I cut him off. "You haven't paid a bill in 7 years, Jason. You embezzled $40,000 from my company in the last 6 months alone. Frank ran the audit. It's all there." "40,000? Robert roared, finally finding his voice. He stood up, his face beet red. "You stole $40,000? You told me you were making a profit trading options." "I was." Jason yelled back at his father. "I just needed seed capital. I was going to pay it back. With my money," I reminded him. Brenda, who had been frantically texting under the table, finally spoke up. "Look, this is a mess. But we're family. We don't need to bring the police into this. Sarah, surely we can work something out. You don't want to see your husband in jail." "Actually," I said, leaning back against the sideboard, crossing my arms. "I really, really do. But that's up to the district attorney now. The fraud report is filed." "You can withdraw it," Brenda pressed, her voice turning hard. "If you know what's good for you. You think a judge will give you a fair shake? We know people, Sarah. Dad plays golf with Judge Henderson. And I have video evidence of grand larceny and bank fraud," I countered. "Golf buddies don't cover felonies, Brenda." I looked over at Kyle. He hadn't moved. He was watching his brother with a look of profound disappointment. "Kyle," Jason pleaded, noticing him for the first time. "Back me up here. Tell her she's crazy. Tell her how much pressure I've been under." Kyle looked up slowly. He picked up his napkin, wiped his mouth, and placed it on the table. "She's not crazy, Jason," Kyle said quietly. "She's the only sane person here. I saw the ring receipt. I saw the texts. You're not a victim. You're a thief. You little traitor." Jason lunged toward Kyle, but Robert grabbed his arm. "Sit down, you fool." Robert barked at Jason. "You've ruined everything." "I ruined it?" Jason screamed, his mask completely slipping now. He looked wild, unhinged. "You pushed me." "Get the boat, Jason. Get the money, Jason. Don't let that woman control the assets, Jason. You wanted this as much as I did. We wanted you to manage the business, not rob it." Linda cried, tears streaming down her face, tears for her lost lifestyle, not for her son's morality. I watched them turn on each other. It was fascinating. The loyalty they had toasted to was as flimsy as wet paper. As soon as the money was gone, the love evaporated. "Enough," I said. The room quieted down. "You wanted to know about the future," I said to Jason. "You wanted to know where the money was going. Well, I'm keeping the business. All of it. The lawyer says with the fraud and the dissipation of assets, I'll get 100%. And the house? You're going to sign a quitclaim deed tonight, or I hand the unredacted video of you forging my signature to the FBI. I can't sign the house over, Jason stammered. Where will I live? I hear the condo downtown is nice, I said sarcastically. Oh wait, you didn't put a deposit down yet. Shame. Sarah, please, Jason dropped to his knees. Literally dropped to his knees on my hardwood floor. It was pathetic. I love you. We can fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll cut off Tiffany. I swear to God, I'll never see her again. She means nothing. She's just some trashy girl from the bank. I looked down at him. Trashy girl from the bank? Yes. She seduced me. It wasn't my fault. I smiled. A true, genuine smile. Hold that thought, Jason, I said. I think there's someone here who might disagree with that characterization. I pulled my phone out and sent a single text message, now. The front door opened. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. Jason turned around, still on his knees. Standing in the doorway was a man who looked like he chewed nails for breakfast. He was wearing work boots and a flannel shirt covered in concrete dust. He looked like the kind of man I worked with every day. Solid. Real. And currently, extremely angry. Jason, I said. I'd like you to meet Mark. Jason looked confused. Who? I'm Tiffany's husband, Mark rumbled, his voice deep and vibrating with suppressed rage. The color drained from Jason's face so completely he looked like a wax figure. He tried to scramble backward, scrambling on his hands and knees like a crab, until his back hit the legs of the dining table. Husband? Jason squeaked. No. No, she's single. She lives alone. She lives in my house, Mark said, stepping into the dining room. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. His presence filled the room, sucking the air out of Jason's lungs. She lives in the house I pay for. Driving the car I leased. And apparently, wearing the ring you bought with your wife's money. Mark tossed a small velvet box onto the table. It bounced and landed in a half-eaten pizza box. She tried to hide it, Mark said to me, ignoring Jason. But when I told her you were going to the police with the embezzlement charges, she gave it up pretty quick. Said she didn't want to be an accessory. She gave it back? Jason whispered, looking at the box. His investment. His escape plan. She threw you under the bus, kid, Mark said, looking down at Jason with pure pity. She told me everything. How you lied about being the CEO. How you said your wife was a lazy housewife who spent all your money. She showed me the texts. Jason looked at me. Sarah, she's lying. She's crazy. Stop, I said. Just stop lying, Jason. It's over. I walked over to the table and picked up my wine glass. The room was silent, save for Jason's ragged breathing. I started this dinner by letting you all toast to the future, I said, looking at Robert, Linda, and Brenda. To the family legacy. But you forgot one thing. Legacies aren't built on theft. They're built on work. I raised my glass. So here's my toast, I said. To the truth. To the end of the lies. And to me finally taking out the trash. I drank. The wine tasted sweet. Get out, I said calmly. Sarah, Linda sobbed. Please, be reasonable. Where is he going to go? I don't care, I said. He can go to Tiffany's. Oh wait, Mark, is he welcome there? Mark cracked his knuckles. If he sets foot on my property, I'll bury him under a patio. Guess not, I said. Maybe a hotel? If his credit card still works. Oh, that's right. I cancelled the authorized user card an hour ago. Jason stood up slowly, using the table for support. He looked broken. But there was a flicker of something else in his eyes. Malice. You think you've won? He sneered, his voice trembling with rage. You think you're so smart? You're nothing without me. Who handled the taxes? Who talked to the investors? You're just a glorified handyman, Sarah. You'll bankrupt this company in 6 months without me. I built this company while you were playing fantasy football, I shot back. And as for the taxes? Frank and I are refiling the last 3 years to correct your creative accounting. You're the liability, Jason. I'm the asset. I'll sue you. Jason screamed, spit flying from his mouth. I'll take everything. I'll tell everyone you're insane. Mark took one step forward. Just one step. Jason flinched so hard he almost fell over again. I think the lady asked you to leave, Mark rumbled. Dad? Jason looked at his father. Robert stood up, buttoning his jacket with shaking hands. He wouldn't look at his son. He wouldn't look at me. He just looked at the door. Come on, Linda, Robert muttered. We're leaving. But Robert. Linda wailed. Leave him. Robert snapped. He's a fool and a criminal. I'm not getting dragged into a fraud investigation. The rats were deserting the sinking ship. Brenda? Jason asked. Brenda grabbed her purse. I have to get home to the kids, Jason. Good luck. They walked out. His parents. His sister. They walked right past him without a backward glance. They left him alone in the ruins of the life he had tried to steal. Jason stood there, stripped of his audience, stripped of his power. He looked small. Sarah, he whispered. Please. Get out. He looked at me one last time, hatred and fear warring in his eyes. Then he turned and ran. He literally ran out the front door, leaving it wide open to the night air. I heard his car start, the engine revving aggressively as he peeled out of the driveway. Silence descended on the house. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for a week. My knees shook, and I had to lean against the wall. Mark looked at me. You okay? No, I said honestly. But I will be. Kyle, who had been sitting quietly in the corner the entire time, stood up. He walked over to me. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry, Sarah. It's not your fault, Kyle, I said, hugging him. Thank you. For everything. I should go, Mark said awkwardly. I have a divorce to file. Me too, I said. Mark? Thank you. For coming. Pleasure, Mark said grimly. Seeing his face? Worth the drive. The front door was still open, letting in the cool night breeze that smelled of rain and exhaust fumes. Mark's truck taillights faded down the street. Kyle had left shortly after, promising to check on me in the morning. I was alone. Finally alone in the house that I paid for, with the silence I had earned. I walked to the dining room table. The debris of the battle was scattered everywhere, empty pizza boxes, half-drunk wine glasses, the manila folders spilled open like guts. And there, in the center of the table, sitting in a grease stain, was the velvet box containing the engagement ring. I picked it up. It was heavy. $8,500 of my hard-earned money. I opened it. The diamond sparkled under the chandelier, cold, hard, and indifferent. It was a beautiful rock, but all I could see was the deception it represented. Jason had looked at this ring and seen a future with another woman, funded by the sweat of my brow. I snapped the box shut. I wasn't done yet. The emotional demolition was complete, but the physical purge needed to happen now. I couldn't sleep in this house with his ghost haunting the corners. I went to the garage, the place where it all started. I grabbed a stack of heavy-duty contractor bags. I marched upstairs to the master bedroom. I didn't pack nicely. I didn't fold. I opened his drawers and scooped everything out in armfuls. His designer shirts, his golf polos, the expensive watches he bought with bonuses that were actually stolen from my payroll account. I shoved them into the black plastic bags. I went to the bathroom. His cologne, his razor, his fancy hair products. Into the bag. I stripped the bedsheets, the ones he had slept on while lying to my face. Into the bag. I dragged the bags, 5 of them, down the stairs. They bumped loudly against each step, a satisfying thud, thud, thud. I hauled them out to the curb. It was garbage night. Perfect timing. I stood on the driveway, looking at the pile of black plastic. That was it. 7 years of marriage reduced to 5 bags of trash. I went back inside and locked the door. But the lock felt flimsy. He still had a key. He could come back. He could try to steal the computers, the files, the expensive tools in the garage. I went back to the garage and grabbed my drill and a new deadbolt set I kept in my inventory. It was 11 p.m. I was exhausted. My hands were shaking. But I knelt by the front door and began to unscrew the lock mechanism. Whir. Click. Whir. The sound of the drill was soothing. It was the sound of work. The sound of building. As I removed the old lock, the lock Jason had opened thousands of times, I felt a profound shift inside me. I wasn't just changing a lock. I was sealing a breach. I was reinforcing my perimeter. I slid the new bolt into place. Solid brass. Unbreakable. I tightened the screws. Kintuang Jason Runray, Mat Kat Kong Kon Jayat Mao, Kogang Lap Bap Emotiloi Noi Doi Nua Tuksu La Koen Kokdang Gia Not Doi Toa. Nu Ben Kon Ne Dende, Hey Jup Twa like video va ben luan so one ben dui, de twa beat rang ben that toet voi, va twa hi rang ben dang dang han kung twa trong sud han tran nai. Su jup du kwa ben lan in kich le vio kan lan lao, ko viu cho twa. Hey ben luan so one de twa nra ben ba bai geo, ben hey lang ne twa katip ka chuing kwa min. I tested the key. Click. Clack. Smooth. Secure. I did the back door. Then the garage door. By midnight, the house was a fortress. I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the living room floor, leaning against the sofa. I looked at the TV screen, which was still frozen on the image of the forged signature. I picked up the remote and turned it off. The screen went black. Then, my phone buzzed. And again. And again. It started. The digital storm. I picked up the phone. It was Jason. Jason, 12:04 a.m. Sarah, please. I'm at a motel. My card declined. I have nowhere to go. Jason, 12:05 a.m. You can't do this. It's illegal to lock me out. Jason, 12:07 a.m. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I panicked. Please, just talk to me. Jason, 12:15 a.m. Are you there? Pick up. I watched the messages roll in. They were desperate, frantic, pathetic. Then, a different tone. Jason, 12:30 a.m. You bitch. You ruined my life. I hope you're happy. My dad isn't speaking to me. Tiffany blocked me. Jason, 12:35 a.m. I'm coming over. We need to talk face to face. I stared at the message. I'm coming over. Let him come. The locks were changed. The cameras were recording. And under the seat of my truck, I had a tire iron. But I didn't think I'd need it. Men like Jason are cowards. They only attack when they think you're weak. I typed a single reply. Sarah, come over if you want. The police are already on their way to pick up the surveillance footage of the forgery. I'm sure they'd love to save a trip and arrest you on my lawn. 3 dots appeared. He was typing. Then they disappeared. He didn't reply. I blocked his number. I sat there in the silence, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel anxious. I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. The shoe had dropped. The roof had caved in. And I was still standing in the rubble, holding the drill. I was going to be okay. The weekend passed in a strange, quiet haze. I didn't leave the house. I spent the time cleaning, deep cleaning. I scrubbed the floors where he had walked. I washed the walls. I rearranged the furniture so the house wouldn't look like our house anymore. It would look like mine. On Monday morning, I walked into my office at Sarah's Sanctuaries. My team was already there, Frank the accountant, my foreman Dave, and my receptionist Jenny. They all stopped talking when I walked in. They knew something was up. Rumors fly fast in a small town. Morning, I said, putting my bag down. Meeting in the conference room. 5 minutes. I stood at the head of the table. I didn't hide anything. Jason and I are divorcing, I said clearly. He has been removed from all accounts. Frank has the details. If he calls here, if he shows up here, you do not let him in. You call the police. Dave, a big guy who had been with me since the beginning, cracked his knuckles. He stole from us, didn't he? I saw the audit Frank was running. He did, I admitted. But we're handling it. You want me to stand guard at the door, boss? Dave asked. No, Dave. We have work to do. We have a hotel contract to sign. I signed the contract that afternoon. The real contract. The one that secured my future. Later that day, I got a text from Kyle. Kyle, just thought you should know. Mom kicked Jason out of their house this morning. He tried to stay there, but Dad is terrified of the fraud investigation. He told Jason to figure it out himself. Jason is staying at a cheap motel on Route 9. I felt a twinge of, not pity, but something like acknowledgement. Jason had always relied on his safety nets. His parents, me, Tiffany. Now, one by one, the nets had been cut. He was finally in freefall. Then came the legal onslaught. My lawyer, Rebecca, called me on Tuesday. Sarah, good news. Jason's lawyer called. They want to settle. Already? I asked. Jason has no money for a retainer, Rebecca laughed. And with the criminal fraud report hanging over his head, his lawyer advised him to fold. They're offering a full quitclaim on the house and a waiver of all spousal support if you agree to drop the fraud charges and not pursue the embezzlement criminally. I thought about it. I wanted him in jail. God, I wanted him in jail. But a criminal trial would take months, maybe years. It would drag me into court over and over. It would keep him in my life. I want the business, I said. 100%. No equity split. They'll agree to that, Rebecca said. He's terrified of prison, Sarah. He's broken. And I want the ring back, I added. The engagement ring. It was bought with company funds. It's company property. I'll add it to the list. I hung up. It was almost too easy. But then I realized it wasn't easy. It was the result of preparation. I had built a case so strong it was a brick wall he couldn't climb. That evening, I went to the grocery store. I turned the corner of the produce aisle and saw Brenda. She saw me and immediately tried to turn her cart around, knocking over a display of apples. "Brenda," I said, stopping her. "Sarah," she said, looking flushed. "Look, about the other night." "Save it," I said. "I just want you to know something. You called me a loser. You said I was bringing Jason down." Brenda looked at the floor. "I'm keeping the house," I said. "I'm keeping the business. And I'm keeping my dignity. Tell your brother I hope the motel has good ice." I walked away, leaving her standing in a pile of apples. It felt petty. It felt fantastic. I drove home with my groceries, paid for with my own card, secure and safe. When I got home, there was a package on the porch. No return address. I opened it. Inside was the velvet box. Mark must have mailed it. Or maybe he dropped it off. I opened the box. The diamond stared back at me. I took it inside. I didn't put it in a safe. I put it on my desk. I was going to sell it. And I was going to use the money to take myself on a vacation. A real vacation. Somewhere with a beach and no cell service. I sat down at my computer to check my email. One new message. From Jason. Subject, goodbye. I hovered over the delete button. But curiosity won. I opened it. "Sarah, I know you hate me. You should. I messed up everything. I lost Tiffany, she was using me anyway, you were right. I lost my family. I lost you. I'm living in a dump. I just wanted to say, you were the best thing that ever happened to me. And I was too stupid to see it. Good luck with the company. You deserve it." It was a nice sentiment. A week ago, it might have made me cry. Now? It just looked like more manipulation. He was fishing for sympathy. He was hoping I'd soften, maybe send him a check. I hit delete. Then I emptied the trash folder. The divorce was finalized in record time. 60 days. It was an uncontested dissolution. Jason signed everything. He didn't even show up to the final hearing, his lawyer just handed over the paperwork. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright Chicago sunlight. The air smelled crisp, like autumn. I felt lighter. Physically lighter. I had lost 150 pounds of dead weight named Jason. I walked to my truck. Kyle was waiting for me. He had taken the day off school to be there. "It's done?" he asked. "It's done," I said. "I'm officially Sarah Jenkins again. No hyphen." "Congratulations," Kyle grinned. "Lunch is on me." We went to a burger joint. It was simple, greasy, and perfect. "So," Kyle asked, dipping a fry in ketchup. "What now?" "Now?" I smiled. "Now I build." "Build what?" "Everything," I said. "I have the hotel contract. I have a backlog of clients. And I have a house that needs a serious renovation. I'm thinking of tearing out the kitchen. Jason picked the tile, and I always hated it." Kyle laughed. "Need a hand? I'm free weekends. I might take you up on that. I'll pay you, of course. In pizza and beer." "Deal." We ate in comfortable silence. "Have you heard from him?" I asked. I hadn't meant to, but the question slipped out. Kyle sighed. "Yeah. He's working at a car rental place near the airport. Living in a studio apartment. He looks tired. He asked about you." "What did you say?" "I said you were thriving." I nodded. That was enough. I drove home that afternoon and walked into my kitchen. I looked at the beige tiles Jason had insisted on 5 years ago because they were neutral and good for resale value. I went to the garage and got my sledgehammer. I walked back into the kitchen. I stood in the center of the room. I swung the hammer. Crack. The tile shattered. A jagged line of white dust puffed into the air. It felt better than therapy. Crack. Another one. Crack. 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 I spent the next 2 hours destroying the kitchen. I was covered in dust, sweating, my muscles burning. And I was laughing. I was laughing so hard tears ran down my face. I was reclaiming my space. I was exorcising the memories. When I was done, I stood amidst the rubble of my old life. It looked like a disaster zone. But to me, it looked like a blank canvas. I swept up the debris. I hauled it out. That night, I ordered Thai food and ate it sitting on the subfloor of my kitchen. It was the best meal I had ever tasted. I was alone, yes. But for the first time in 7 years, I wasn't lonely. I was just present. My phone rang. It was Nancy from the bank. Sarah. Just wanted to let you know the new accounts are fully set up. And the fraud investigation on the Helic is officially closed since you declined to prosecute. But we've flagged Jason's social security number. He won't be getting a loan from us, or any partner bank, for a very long time. Thanks, Nancy, I said. You take care of yourself, honey. I am, I said. Finally. Life moved on. The leaves changed color and fell. The hotel project started, consuming my days with permits, blueprints, and steel beams. I was in my element. I hadn't heard from Jason in 3 months. I assumed he had faded into the background, a cautionary tale of hubris. Then, the messages started again. It was a Tuesday night. I was working late on a quote. My personal phone, which I rarely used for business anymore, pinged. Unknown number, Sarah. It's me. Please don't block me. I have a new number. I sighed. I should block him instantly. But curiosity is a curse. Unknown number, I saw the article in the Business Journal. Women in construction, Sarah Jenkins builds an empire. You looked great in the photo. I had done an interview last week. I looked strong in the photo, wearing my hard hat, standing in front of the hotel skeleton. Sarah, what do you want, Jason? Jason, I miss you. I miss us. My life is a mess, Sarah. This job sucks. The apartment has roaches. I realize now how good I had it. Sarah, you didn't have it good, Jason. You had it easy. There's a difference. Jason, I know. I took advantage. I was an idiot. But people change, right? I've been humbled. Can we just get coffee? 5 minutes. Just to clear the air. I looked at the screen. The audacity was impressive. He thought that a few months of hardship wiped the slate clean. He thought he could charm his way back into the warmth now that winter was coming. Sarah, no. Jason, please. I still love you. Sarah, you don't love me, Jason. You love the safety I provided. You love the money. You love the image. You never loved me. You called me a loser to your sister. You can't undo that. Jason, I was drunk. I was stupid. Sarah, you were honest. That was the only time you were honest. Jason, Sarah, I'm drowning here. I have debts. The lawyers cost a fortune. I need help. Just a loan. I'll pay you back. There it was. The hook. It always came back to money. Sarah, I'm not a bank, Jason. And I'm certainly not your bank anymore. Ask your parents. Jason, they won't talk to me. They blame me for embarrassing the family with the fraud stuff. Sarah, sounds like a personal problem. Goodbye, Jason. Jason, wait. If you don't help me, I don't know what I'll do. I might. I can't go on like this. The suicide threat. The final manipulation tactic of the narcissist. I didn't panic this time. I didn't feel guilty. I felt cold detachment. I typed out a number. Sarah, here is the number for the National Crisis Hotline, 988. If you are truly feeling unsafe, call them. Or go to the ER. Do not contact me again, or I will file a restraining order for harassment. This is your final warning. I hit send. Then I blocked the number. I sat back in my chair. My heart rate hadn't even elevated. I had finally immunized myself against him. He was a virus, and my immune system had done its job. I went back to my quote. I had a business to run. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. I frowned, thinking he had gotten another burner phone. But it wasn't him. It was Mark. Tiffany's ex-husband. Mark, hey Sarah. Saw the article in the journal. Congrats. You look like a boss. I smiled. Mark and I had stayed in touch loosely. Trauma bonding, I guess. He had divorced Tiffany quickly. She was currently living with her mother in Florida, looking for a new victim. Sarah, thanks, Mark. How are things? Mark, good. Busy. Actually, I was wondering. I have a client who needs some high-end staging for a condo flip. It's out of my wheelhouse. Thought of you. Interested in a collab? Sarah, strictly business? Mark, strictly business. Unless you want to grab a beer after to celebrate not being married to idiots anymore. I laughed out loud in my empty office. Sarah, send me the details. And I'm in for the beer. 6 months later. I stood on the roof of the boutique hotel, looking out over the city skyline. The wind whipped my hair, but I didn't mind. The project was finished. On time. Under budget. And it was beautiful. Down below, people were walking on the sidewalks, tiny ants in the grand scheme of things. I wondered if Jason was down there somewhere, renting a cheap car to a tourist, bitter and angry. I found that I didn't really care. He was a chapter in my book, a long, painful chapter, but the page had turned. Hey, boss! Dave called out from the access hatch. Inspector is here for the final walkthrough. Coming! I yelled back. I walked down the stairs, running my hand along the railing. I had designed this. I had built this. The walkthrough was flawless. The inspector signed off. We were done. That evening, I met Mark at a local brewery. We had done 3 projects together in the last 6 months. He was good. Solid. He laughed at my jokes and respected my expertise. He didn't try to explain finance to me. He didn't care about status. To the hotel, Mark said, raising his pint glass. To the hotel, I clinked my glass against his. So, Mark said, wiping foam from his lip. What's next for Sarah's sanctuaries? I'm thinking of expanding, I said. Maybe hiring another crew. And I'm finally finishing my own kitchen. The tile is arriving tomorrow. Nice, Mark smiled. Need help installing it? I think I can handle it, I teased. But I might need someone to lift the heavy boxes. I'm your man. I looked at him. Really looked at him. There were no butterflies, no dizzying rush like I had with Jason in the beginning. There was just warmth, safety, and respect. You know, I said. I think you might be. We finished our beers and walked out into the cool evening. When I got home, the house felt different. It wasn't just a structure anymore. It was a home. My kitchen was prepped for the new tile, a slate blue, bold and textured, nothing like the beige Jason loved. I walked into the living room and sat on the couch. My dog, a rescue golden retriever mix I had named Joyce, yes, I'm a nerd, hopped up beside me and laid his heavy head on my lap. I scratched his ears. We did good, boy, I whispered. I thought about the woman I was in the garage that day. The woman who was terrified, shaking, and heartbroken. The woman who thought her life was over because a man called her a loser. I wished I could go back and hug her. I wished I could tell her, you are not a loser. You are a builder. And you are about to build something magnificent. But she knew that now. I picked up my phone. I opened the photo gallery. I scrolled past the pictures of the demolition, the divorce papers, the evidence. I deleted them. All of them. I didn't need the evidence anymore. I knew the truth. I scrolled to the most recent photo. It was a selfie of me and Kyle, taken last weekend when he came over to help me paint the dining room. We were both covered in paint, grinning like idiots. Kyle was doing great, he had stood up to his parents finally and was moving to Colorado to teach. And the next photo, me and Mark, sitting on the tailgate of his truck, eating sandwiches on a lunch break. These were the foundations of my new life. Friendship. Hard work. Genuine connection. I put the phone down. I had stepped into the garage for chairs, and I had found the truth. It had hurt. It had almost broken me. But like steel tempered in fire, I came out stronger. I wasn't just preparing dinner anymore. I was preparing a future. And this time, I was the only one holding the blueprints. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to relive, but I hope it reminds you that no matter how deep the cracks in your foundation are, you can always rebuild. You are stronger than you think, and you are worth more than anyone who tries to diminish you. If you enjoyed this story and want to support me, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to rebuild your life from scratch? I read every single comment. Stay strong, everyone. And remember, check the garage. You never know what you might hear. And so, this story leaves us with a powerful reminder: resilience is not just the ability to withstand hardship, it's the courage to rebuild, to reclaim, and to rise above what was meant to break us. Sarah's journey teaches us that self-worth is not defined by the opinions of others, but by the strength we find within ourselves to stand tall, even when the ground beneath us crumbles. Her story is a testament to the fact that no betrayal, no loss, and no adversity can truly defeat someone who knows their value and refuses to let others diminish it. Through her determination and clarity, we see the importance of facing challenges with strategy, not just emotion. In life, there will be moments when we discover the truth in places we least expect, moments that test our resolve and demand action. Sarah's story reminds us that we are capable of turning pain into power and building a future that reflects our true worth. What about you? Have you ever faced a situation where you had to rebuild yourself or your life? Share your thoughts below, or simply comment good if this story resonated with you. Let's inspire each other to keep growing, no matter what life throws our way.